Hey guys, Mike here from Moto Mule, and today we're doing a different kind of video. Many of you have asked for a shop tour video and for info on my time-lapse camera rig. So we'll answer those requests, plus we'll talk about some cool new channel artwork and my YouTube goals for the year 2020. Before we begin, I want to give you all a huge thank you. I've had a YouTube channel for many years, but I didn't start posting regular content until last spring. In less than 1 year, over 30,000 of you have decided to subscribe and follow the progress of my crazy projects. Again, I want to say thank you. Without your support, I couldn't do this. Not only am I starting to generate a little income from posting these videos, but I've made some great new friends. I've only had the pleasure of meeting a few of them in person, but there are several I keep in contact with on a regular basis. I really enjoy being part of this YouTube builders community. I am very excited about this new Moto Mule artwork. Henry Darrow is a fan of Moto Mule, and he created this artwork for me. Please go check out his Instagram page at Eluded Art. I'll put a link in the description below. He does great work. Don't hesitate to ask him to hook you up with something custom. Alright, let's start this shop tour. We live outside the city limits of Eugene, Oregon. When you walk up to my shop, it appears very large. In reality, half of the ground floor and all of the upper level is my mother-in-law's living space. The area that's mine measures 30 feet wide by 25 feet deep. Of course, I'd love to have all the space to myself, but I'm not complaining. This is by far the nicest shop I've ever had. I feel very fortunate that my wife and I own this beautiful piece of property. I don't ever want to move again. Moving the 10 pounds of crap I have stuffed into this 5-pound shop is not fun. Trust me. I'm going to insert a disclaimer here. I am not a young man. I will turn 50 later this year. Yes, I said 50, as in 5-0. And I'd be lying if I said that didn't freak me out a little bit. I only mention my age to give you an idea of how long I've been collecting tools. I'm not a financially rich man, yet everything in this shop is paid for. This is only possible because I started buying these tools over 30 years ago. It's amazing what you can accumulate when you buy a little here and a little there over 3 decades. I've spent my working career in sheet metal shops, machine shops, and bicycle manufacturers. I've been a blue-collar man my whole life. I grew up in a middle-class family with a loving, hard-working mother and a father that spent the last of his life in prison. My grandfather bought me my first tool set when I was about 12 years old. It was just some Chinese wrenches and sockets, but it sparked my passion for building things. I only mention these things to encourage you. I wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth. I didn't have the perfect childhood. I didn't get any kind of inheritance. What I did have was patience and perseverance. I've known since I was a teenager that I wanted to build things. To build things, you need tools. So it's been my mission to collect the tools that I need to build things, so that one day I could inspire my children and grandchildren the way my grandfather did me. I get negative comments on my videos here and there, saying that I can't call the things I do it-yourself, because the average guy doesn't have the tools that I have. Well, newsflash, I'm just an average guy. An average guy that chose to buy tools anytime he had extra money and spent his free time learning to use them. Owning tools doesn't magically give you anything. You also need to spend the time to develop the skills to use them. Alright, enough of that. Let's start in the back corner and take a look at my CNC Plasma Table. This is actually the second CNC Plasma Table that I've built. Believe it or not, I built my first one in the late 1990s. It took me 2 years to build it, not because it was overly difficult, but because it took me that long to save up the money to buy all the components. In fact, I finished the gantry before I had the money to purchase the plasma torch. So, I taught myself to program the CNC with a giant pencil in the place of the plasma torch. If you look through my older videos, you'll find a video on the construction of this plasma table. I consider the CNC plasma cutter to be one of my most useful tools. I'd be lost without one. The plasma cutting process leaves behind some slag that you need to clean off. I use a Harbor Freight air chisel to knock off the bigger stuff. I then throw the parts on an old magnetic chuck off of a surface grinder. Many of you have asked about this magnetic chuck. I purchased this one 20 years ago from an Enco tool catalog. It requires no electricity. The handle simply moves the magnets around inside to cancel out the pull. The plasma cutting process is not as precise as laser cutting. If I have a hole that needs to be a precise size, I cut the hole undersize and use a step drill in a drill press to open up the hole. I've found that step drills work the best and last the longest for this application. The plasma cutter also hardens the edge of the cuts, so it's very hard on drill bits. Next up is my saw table and tubing storage rack. To conserve space, I mounted this abrasive chop saw and cold saw onto the same table and fence setup. Here is a trick you can use to save yourself some time. I have all these simple jigs that fit into a hole on my backstop. This way I can quickly cut sections of tube to a preset length without pulling out a tape measure. Here on the back wall is my most complicated tool, a CNC machining center. I still have a lot to learn to get any good at using this bad boy. Next to the mill is my sandblast cabinet and a homemade powder coating spray booth and oven. On the other side of the mill is my lathe, another can't live without tool. Next to it is a CNC router. It honestly is just a fancy table most of the time. Something about sawdust in a metal shop scares me. Next up is my swag modified Harbor Freight shop press and Pro Tools tubing bender. I have one electric over hydraulic pump with a quick connect fitting that I use to power both of these now hydraulic tools. Then there is my swag modified Harbor Freight tubing roller, a bead roller, and my Swag Tools bandsaw table. As you can see, I'm a huge fan of Swag Tools. I own many of their upgrade parts. Check them out over at Swag Off-Road. I'll leave a link in the description below. Last, but definitely not least, is my welding table. I actually have 3 welders stuffed under this table, and the whole thing is on wheels. Honestly, most of the stuff in my shop is on wheels. It's what you have to do when you cram so much stuff into a small space. This table holds the welders, gas bottles, spare wire and rod, and all other consumables that the welders might need. I hate wasting time looking for things. I like to just keep them where they are used. And there you have it. That is the grand tour of the tools in my shop. Obviously, there are several smaller tools and basic hand tools everywhere in here, but I showed you all the major stuff. As promised, I'll now show you how I make those dandy rotating time-lapse videos. You ever heard of a guy named Rube Goldberg? I think he might have enjoyed what I've done here. It all starts with this electric motor that spins at about 140 RPM. It spins a small sprocket that pulls a chain around a large sprocket, which reduces the RPM of the second shaft, which spins another small sprocket that pulls another chain around another large sprocket, which of course spins another shaft with yet another small sprocket that pulls yet another chain around yet another large sprocket, that finally rotates the arm with the GoPro camera on the end of it. After all the gear reduction, the camera takes about 50 minutes to make one full rotation. Not bad for some old bicycle chains and some big sprockets that I cut out on the CNC Plasma Table, huh? Lastly, let's talk about goals for the year 2020. My goals for 2020 are simple. Finish the Gravedigger. Finish the Kid Buggy. Finish the side-by-side-by-side buggy. Finish the golf cart. Finish the toddler bed go-kart. And build a mini bike so I can attend the Gambler 100 mini bike event. There you have it. I finally made the shop tour video that you guys asked for. I hope you enjoyed it. If so, please hit that like button. If you haven't yet, please consider subscribing. Have yourself a wonderful day, and I will see you in the next video.